Hi, everyone. My name is Jana Sandeva. I'm a senior program manager at the Yale and US College Center for International and Professional Experience. For those of you who may not be so familiar with us, Yale and US College is the first liberal arts and sciences college in Singapore, founded as a partnership between Yale University and the National University of Singapore. We recently became a partner in launching the Latin American and Iberian and European Studies Undergraduate Fellows Networks at Yale. And today I'm delighted to welcome you to this event, part of the Career Conversation series of the Undergraduate Fellows Network for students interested in topics related to Latin American and Iberian studies. Yale's Council on Latin American and Iberian Studies enhances Latin America and the Iberian Peninsula through collaborative efforts focused on meaningful partnerships and exchange of ideas and academic research. The Council serves as a central hub for intellectual exchange and partnership in Latin America, Spain, and Portugal, and it administers the Latin American Studies undergraduate major at Yale. Yale and US is delighted to be collaborating with the Council in launching these undergraduate fellows networks. If you haven't yet officially joined them, or if you're a graduate student, the graduate networks, please visit the Council's websites to join. Once you join, you'll be part of a very close community and have opportunities to meet and work with faculty and visiting scholars, as well as funding opportunities during the academic year for short-term research, travel, conferences, and summer projects. Yale and US and the councils at Yale are also pleased to include the Yale's Jackson Institute and its Global Health Studies program as part of the Career Conversation series. Now I'm very glad to introduce our guest speaker today, 2020 Yale World Fellow, Jorge Soto. Jorge is a serial entrepreneur focusing on the use of technology for positive impact. He was a chief technology officer and co-founder of Miraculous, a biotechnology company that seeks to democratize access to complex molecular tests for treatment and prevention of diseases. Jorge founded Miraculous with the vision of reducing the entry barrier in cost, development, complexity, and increasing access to genetic sequencing, synthetic biology, and genetic editing to help advance science and improve lives. Previously, he was Deputy Director General of Civic Innovation at the Coordination of National Digital Strategy of Mexico, where he led strategies and projects that promote citizen participation and innovation in the country through the use of technology. From 2009 to 2012, Jorge was the founder and chief technology officer of CityVox, a platform that allowed government officials and development agencies to receive and analyze citizen reports and convert them into actionable information. Today, Jorge is focusing on the development of tools that use technology to improve the financial situation of people in Latin America. He's now working on his next endeavor, a telematics-based insurtech in Brazil that aims to offer fairer, smarter, and more human insurance. Thank you, Jorge, and welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm gonna share some slides, and I also gonna use them to tell you the story of civic innovation and how we got that started in Mexico and other places in the region in Latin America. So you can all see my slides, right? Great. So just to put you a little bit in context, this is Mexico in 2006. Mexico just had an election, and the difference between the two candidates was just 0.5% or less. So the country was extremely divided. People went to the streets screaming fraud. And the main street in Mexico City was, this was the main street in Mexico City for 6 months. People were just camping there and protesting against the government. So the country was extremely divided as this new president took office. I was just starting college at the time. And 3 years afterwards, in 2009, when we had midterm elections, I wanted to do something about it. I knew that the political situation in Mexico was not the best. The country was extremely divided. Violence was soaring as well. So, and I was studying engineering. I thought, what can I do? I'm an engineer. I'm not a politician. I know nothing about politics. So I don't believe there's anything I can do. But then talking to some friends, we realized that we could use technology to try to crowdsource election monitoring and increase citizen trust that way. So we created a project called Cuidemos el Voto, which basically translates to Let's Protect the Vote. And we ask citizens to report any problem that they see during the election process. Just a little bit of context, this this was our image. It was very colorful and also very local to Mexico. And I just want to tell you what this guy is, in case you don't know. This is a luchador. So luchador it's basically the superhero of Mexico. They're still the luchador fights. They're still happening around Mexico, and they're pretty popular. But back in the 50s and 60s, they were our Batman or Superman. They were fighting the aliens, the drug cartels, the zombies, and Dr. Evil as well. So this was an opportunity for citizens to put the mask and be the superheroes as well, and try to regain trust between citizens and their institutions. So how did it work? We asked citizens to report anything, any problem they see during the election process, either electoral fraud, vote buying, violence, etc., through a cell phone, through our website, through email, and through Twitter. We also had official observers from non-profit organizations that they're already specialized in understanding what is an election crime and what is not. And they will be validating those reports. So we received that information, we will be validating that information and publishing it in this map. Common electoral crime in Mexico that we were tracking is violence, retention of credentials, alteration of the polls, vote buying, coercion with social programs, or vote intimidation. So these were the type of things we were asking citizens to report. The first thing we did was capacity building. We partnered with local and specialized NGOs and provided free training to them on how to use technology, how to map the reports, how to validate the reports, how to forward it to somebody so they can forward it, validate it. This was key to assure adoption and also to speed up the learning process. And it also helped us as a recruiting strategy. The second thing we did, and you can see how old this is by seeing the logo of Twitter or high five there, but it's we identify and engage with local bloggers, with activists and journalists and influencers. And this helped us spill over into the mainstream media. And some of the reports that we got, one party giving away food with doing political marketing during elections, which is illegal in Mexico. A teachers union asking teachers to verify that they voted for the party that they wanted. Another party giving food in exchange for votes. And this report number 4 was very powerful for us because we received this, a candidate stabs another candidate in the polling station. We received this information and we didn't know that it was true. We were looking at the media. There was nothing about it in the media. We received this information 4 hours before the media received it. So this was citizens really on the field reporting what was going on and centralizing all that information for this knowledge, for disease and intelligence. We received about 100,000 reports. About 11,000 of them were validated. We confirmed that there was, together with our partners, that there was some election crime there. We thought that text messages was going to be a big platform, but it wasn't. People were using the web primarily. And at the time, again, this is 2009, Twitter started to seem promising. We saw that there was a 10% of the reports coming from Twitter. The most important finding was that tech was becoming key to democratize a civic process beyond just voting. We went to the official institution that prosecutes electoral crimes in Mexico. We told them we have 11,000 validated reports with name, with pictures, with videos. And they told us we have no mechanism to receive those reports and to process them. So we cannot do anything about it. This was just an exercise, but we won't prosecute a single report. And that was pretty demoralizing to us because we believe we did an amazing effort and we mobilized citizens. But when we tried to close the loop with the institutions, there was no mechanism to do it. So we started asking the question, how can we help institutions also to prepare for this civic innovation that was happening and that was ready to happen? So we visited the modernization or the innovation of the technology departments of different governments and realized that there was a big disconnect between what the citizens were saying, what the verification process was, how the verification process was happening and the response. So this is how, in one of our visits, this is how one of the cities were doing real-time analytics, how they were doing report management and also real-time mapping. So there was clearly a deficit in the agility, the innovation, and the capacity in our institutions to capture, to store, to our context of citizen reports and to measure data and act upon it. So that's when we decided to create this company, CityBox, and launch a tool so that these government officials or these law enforcement institutions can receive these reports, close the feedback loop, forward them, analyze them, and really measure a real-time pulse of what is happening in the city. Thousands of citizen reports have been addressed in the different regions when this system has been deployed, and it helps these institutions to predict and also to better organize the resources in the context of different types of crimes. The platform was open to any type of use, and it was deployed in many different countries and contexts. For example, in Yemen, in Venezuela, in the Ukraine, in this is Mexico, Ecuador, and Dominican Republic, and other places. In total, we received around 1.5 million reports, citizen reports, in 12 different countries, working with 50 different organizations that they can verify that information and act upon those reports. One particular story that I want to share, that's when I realized that what we were building was something that citizens were really taking over these technologies and were redefining the conversation between them and their governments. Was one day in the north of Mexico, in a city I used to live in called Monterrey, a group of a drug cartel came into a casino because the owner of the casino failed to pay an extortion, and they poured gasoline at the entrance, and 150 people were trapped inside. This was the most violent and bloodiest attack in the history of that city. It was a terrorist attack. And on that day, a network of citizen volunteers went to Twitter and became one of the most important voices to alert and to provide assistance to citizens. From missing persons to legal aid to follow up on the investigations. This network of volunteers eventually became an institution called Center for Citizen Integration, and they just tapped into the already existing Twitter conversation. They didn't try to create a new conversation. They realized that the conversation was already happening, and they just tapped into it, verified it, forwarded into to the official institutions so they can be addressed. And they, again, they managed to create a real-time pulse of the city, what the city is seeing, what the city is feeling. And most importantly, they were able to connect it to the official institutions, to close the feedback loop, and to actually pressure them so that they can solve citizens' concerns. One spectacular example is this one. One person tweeted to this network of citizens that somebody had just stolen her car. She tweeted the description of the car and the license plate of the car. And people started responding, saying, I've seen your car pass by this street. I've seen your car pass by this street. And it took 25 minutes until the car was found. So this really shows the power of citizens sharing information between each other within a trusted network. And even better if it's connected to the government officials. Right now, and that's the best thing, these tools are now part of the stack of tools for the government. Now it's the government that is opening the door for citizens to continue reporting, and they're opening data and analytics for citizens also to keep track of it. We sold this company after some successes and failures, and the question of how do we keep creating communities that solve civic and social challenges was still in my mind. We realized with all this experience that the internet had become a sounding board that amplified the voice of the people. But if it didn't amplify also the capacity of the government to listen, then we risked having institutions that were completely disconnected from citizens. And that's when I got an opportunity to continue to try to innovate inside the government. We were innovating on the outside of the governments, but the governments, they still saw the internet just as a digital extension of whatever they were doing offline. They didn't see it as a new tool where they could redefine and redesign themselves. And that's when I was invited to join the government and work on the civic innovation team in the president's office. One of the main important aspects that made me put on hold my entrepreneur career and go inside the government was two things. One, the president, when he launched this national digital strategy, he said that this was going to cut across all departments. It was going to be transversal to all the federal government. So we had the opportunity to really impact anywhere inside the government: security, education, economics, poverty, maternity, everything. And the second one is that it was a good opportunity to try to change the institutions from the inside. I came into the government thinking that we need to have a hacker mentality towards our institutions, to understand them from the inside, to pull them apart, to reformulate them in order to make them better. And the question was, how can we transform the government to take advantage of the knowledge and innovation of its constituents? There were two main strategies that I followed at the government. The first one was government as a platform, and the second one was creating safe spaces for internal innovation. The first one, the government as a platform, what do I mean by that? Something as a platform is, a good analogy is just in technology what the iPhone is. The iPhone is a platform for other people to create tools on top of it. That's what we wanted to do, to try to move the government towards. To have the government to articulate the issues that are faced by society and to create the right environment for solutions to happen. The government would provide the data, the policies, and the funding to support the stakeholders, but not necessarily the solutions. If solutions would come in from the bottom up, they will be much more powerful as well. So we were entering a database economy, and the government was the main generator of data. And one of the biggest challenges was, how can we make all this information available for citizens, not only for transparency purposes, but also as a resource for innovation? So one of the initiatives that I want to share is the Open Data Initiative. First, we draft the policy, and we did it in a Google Docs that was open, and anybody could go and make comments on the policy before we finalize it and send it to the Congress. We received more than 2,300 different comments and proposals from citizens all over Mexico. The second was doing live editing events in the top of universities of Mexico, and also online sessions with different viewers so we can edit in real time. And another one was also to ask citizens to help us prioritize what data sets we should open first. Obviously, there's a lot of information, and it will be overwhelming to try to open everything at the same time. So we just ask citizens, what is the type of information that you want to have that is more important to you? And we receive about 10,000 different people responding to this. And also capacity building inside the government. How can we help you, Ministry of Economy or Ministry of Health or whatever, to also jump on this? And so we created these delivery units that had legal experts, technical experts, policy experts, and information architecture experts that they could live inside the ministries for a few months and organize all their systems so they can be part of this movement. This we now had the supply. Now we needed to work on the practical usefulness of this. In other words, the demand. And I could tell you many different examples of fintech, health, and transparency and other sectors, but I want to share with you a disaster response, a project that I did on disaster response and open data. So this was also one thing that was happening a few months after I joined the government. 2 hurricanes at the same time hitting Mexico in the 2 different coasts. You can see the hurricane number 1 coming on the Gulf, and hurricane number 2 coming on the Pacific exactly at the same time. So this was a major problem. The first thing we did was to make transparent the route of the hurricanes and also the estimated damage, so people could see how much in danger they were if they didn't evacuate. After the hurricanes hit, we also open up all the reconstruction efforts, all the funds that were sent to reconstruction, and exactly where they were, we were sending all the money, and also all the efforts, and citizens could verify or say, no, this is not true. They're not rebuilding this road in my street, and they could verify what we were telling them. This was a citizen-centric form of transparency new to Mexico, and to the public as well, to the government and to the public. Another thing we did, working with a UN institution, it's trying to understand how citizens were evacuating and moving during the natural disaster. What you're seeing here is an analysis of cell phones, how they were moving in a random period, and how they were moving during the natural disaster. So you can see that people are displacing much more while the natural disaster is happening. So this helps us also understand not only where people were going, but also which roads we should prioritize to fix first, so that people could evacuate or come back to their cities. And also we could understand how far citizens go. We realized that 30% of citizens left 10 kilometers from their usual house, and 30% left 100 kilometers, and that it took them the majority 7 days to come back to their home. So this information not only helped us, but again, the government was a platform for disaster response innovation. So we created tools and data, and we led the humanitarian experts to take this to the next level. This is how the damage was done before and after, and citizens were continue to report and add on top of that. This is something that now other companies are building on top of this. If you are in Mexico in a hurricane alert zone today, you will receive notifications on Google, on Facebook, and Twitter, and that's the long-term impact of this type of project. Another quick example that I want to share is the public challenges. The idea here was to help different government agencies or institutions to articulate a problem and to put it open for citizens and entrepreneurs to try to solve it for a contract. So this is an example. They will publicize all the data sets. They will try to also tell the problem, what's the problem, and citizens, entrepreneurs will submit proposals for a contract. We had 9 different challenges. We received 9 tech-based solutions. 1,200 entrepreneurs participated, and we gave $130,000 in contracts to small startups. This was important as well because this can generate also some economic spillover within the startups. So they can see the government also as, not only they're solving a civic problem, but they can see also the government as a potential customer. The problem, this project didn't work out. We confirmed the readiness of the startup community to respond to government needs, but we need a new regulation. At the end, technological innovation has to come hand in hand with regulatory and institutional innovation. And this was clearly not happening for this type of project. The other strategy that I want to share is we try to create safe spaces for internal innovation. The question was, can we create these spaces where the most innovative people inside the government and the most innovative citizens outside, are they allowed to go off to script and come up with big ideas together? So we basically paired one person from outside the government, one person from inside the government, and asked them to work together on 5 different projects: social prevention of violence, open and transparent fund for entrepreneurs, e-health, social program evaluation through feedback, and long distance education. And we went through this flow where we asked them to empathize, to define the problem, to ideate, prototype, and to test, to take a whole year so they can really understand the problem. And they will be prototyping, creating different prototypes, and go out to citizens to talk about it. not only because you're not your job is more in a desk, that doesn't mean you cannot go outside and talk to citizens and understand their fears, and even evaluate how they're feeling. I remember going out with this team. They were talking to people that they were just lived through a gunfight, and how they were feeling. None of us were in the law enforcement part, but we were just talking to people how they feel, how can we make them feel safer, and what type of tools we can create to help them achieve that. At the end of the 5 different projects, one became a startup, the other one didn't kick off. This one became, the eHealth became a government program. The social program evaluation through feedback didn't kick off either, and the long distance education project became another startup. So this was a success to me. We managed to create a safe space for government to try out new things and to fail, and that was okay. There was no institutional framework to scale or allow governments to innovate, but we need to create these safe spaces where we can tell government officials that it's okay to fail, and because we need innovation inside each of our ministries to solve the biggest problems. The common thread from all the projects that I just shared was that we were using the internet to find and to build communities of change. We were trying to raise the lines of sectors through digital tools, and we were trying to create common identities and calls to actions between citizens and governments. However, we also learned that we as a government were not the only ones innovating and trying to catch up. The drug cartels started to use Twitter also to showcase their lifestyle, and use it also as a recruiting strategy. I got very vested in trying to understand the downside of these same tools that we were using. And for me, that meant how illicit networks were using them in Mexico. These groups, they found in the internet a channel to get their message through the media. They were communicating to other criminal groups, to society, and most importantly, they were communicating to the government. This guy, one sicario from one of drug cartel, he even did an Ask Me Anything session on Twitter. And people were asking him questions, he was responding, and he made very chilling comments like the ones I show here. It was cool because I was innocent, but unfortunately no one pays attention to the little angels. Everybody pays attention to the demons. The internet not only was becoming a platform that helped make evident the violence and other social problems in Mexico, it was also becoming an invisible threat, helping connect the fragments and understand the different aspects of our society, whether we like it or not. We try to take advantage of also these tools to reach out to citizens directly. We asked the president to do the State of the Union live stream on Twitter. And one fascinating but also chilling aspect is that the response of the State of the Union didn't come from the opposition. It came from a leader of the drug cartel, also in the same tools. So the president was doing the State of the Union on YouTube, and the leader of one drug cartel was doing the response also on YouTube. And as you see how many views the president got versus how many views this guy got, we're clearly losing that communication war. So I left the government after a year to go back to entrepreneurship. I was very happy from what we achieved, but I was much more critical about technology. And I don't think I really answered the questions that I came into the government with. And I think I left with even more questions after. I'm still a big believer in the potential of technology for decentralizing power, for radical transparency, and for using technology for broader societal changes. But does every problem has a technological solution? Did we push too much for the democratization of tools that at the end left our societies and institutions at crisis? So I think about this a lot. There's some reflections that I want to share with you. We were so focused in the possibilities that the internet was creating that we missed that tech is simultaneously utopia and dystopia. I think we should have paid much more attention to the health of the civic space online. And obviously this generated the crisis we have today, eventually evolved into the crisis we have today of fake news and misinformation. This realization is painful for me because we really thought that we were bringing about a new way of understanding democracy and a new way of engaging with governments. The other side is we push very hard for open data. But as I've read recently, and we were saying open data, there's no harm in doing that. There can only be positive. But as I read recently, how can we do no harm if we don't know what harm is? Data, at the end of the day, is an extension of the integrity of people. And what we did is we just make it easier for data monopolies and the political power of large technologies to consolidate. When I share with you that the climate, the natural disaster response, the examples I gave you were of Twitter, of Facebook, and Google, not really startups. We just help. Are we just helping these data monopolies to continue consolidating their power? Another one is this war on trust that is going on. We new generations, we no longer think in hierarchies. We think in networks, and we want our governments and our elites to be another node within that network. So this clash is further eroding trust, and it has elicited the greatest political conflict of our century that we're living today. And it is not a technology at the end of the day. It is the social systems and how technology is intertwined with them. What we are seeing, I don't think it's yet the death of democracy. We are seeing representative democracy adapting to our times. Innovation and creativity not only come from the creation of new ideas, but also from the destruction of old ones. And I think in that sense, that is good. We're seeing an evolution in that sense of democracy. Finally, all these years, I've considered myself a technology revolutionary working outside and inside institutions, observing, learning, and leading how technology has a democratization effect. Now, I don't call myself a technology revolutionary. I call myself more a cautionary optimist. I saw every day in the front seat how innovation can come from crisis, from an electoral crisis, from a security crisis, a natural disaster crisis, and a health crisis, etc. However, today, I have also realized that crisis can come from innovation. And that is the challenge we're living today and that we collectively need to answer. Now, I will open it to questions. Thank you very much.